Okay, Mishnah Dalet. Perek Aleph, Mishnah Dalet, Perkei Avos. Says the Mishnah. Yossi ben Ye'ezer ish tzreida, v'Yossi ben Yochanan ish Yerushalayim kiblu mehem. Yossi ben Ye'ezer ish tzreida omer. He says, Yi beischa, beis vad l'chachamim, v'have mis'abik ba'afar aglayim, v'have v'shoyse b'tzama es divrayim. So he says three things. Your house, beischa, should be a beis vad l'chachamim, should be a gathering place for the chachamim. Perek Aleph, Mishnah Dalet. Should be a gathering place for the chachamim. So the Rabbeinu Yonah says two things. That can mean one of two things or two of two things. Either in your house, well, let's just touch it. Beis vad chachamim, right, it is a place where the chacham gather. I'm sorry, he says one thing. He says there should be a house where if the chacham, if the rabbis are going to want to get together, they're going to want to gather together. They're going to talk about some issue. They're going to gather in only a chashuv person's house. Not going to anyone's house. They're going to go to the Beis Adam Gadol v'chashuv. So a person should make himself into a chashuv mensch, into an important person, that if there's going to be some gathering, it'll be in his house. So the Rabbeinu Yonah is learning that it's not that you have to make your house a house of the chacham gather per se. The ikar is, a person should be a chashuv yid, that if they want to gather, they should gather in your house. That's what he understands. You should be rolling around. You should, like we have by Yaakov and the Malach when they were fighting. They would be misabik with each other. You should be entangling yourself with the afar ragleim, with the dirt of their feet. The Rabbeinu explains that the way they used to teach back then, we're all sitting on chairs together like this on the same level. Back then, the person giving the Rav would be sitting on a chair. The students would be standing or sitting by his feet. They didn't have tiles. They're sitting on a dirt floor. So being misabik ba'afar ragleim means that one is sitting by the Rabbanan, by the Tanaim, by the Amoraim, and learning from them. So the same thing, a person should be Mishamish Tamid Chacham Yeshiva in a respectful way. That's what Rabbeinu Yonah says. One should be drinking their words with thirst. Rabbeinu Yonah says, Nefesh, quotes a pasuk in Mishlei, Nefesh Sevei Tavos Neifes, the Nefesh Re'eva Kol Mar Masak. If someone's full, no matter how sweet the food is, you're not going to want to eat it. If you're full. If a person is hungry, he's famished, even the most bitter thing tastes good. So says the Rabbeinu Yonah, Mishu saveh medivrei Torah ve'ein chefza behen. I feel margulus v'Torah. A person doesn't really have an interest in Torah. You can tell him a beautiful, beautiful chiddush. Tavos oisa nafshe. He's not going to be. He doesn't want to hear it. V'harav mehen misav l'shaman. A person who is hungry and he desires very much to hear Torah. No matter what you tell him, a small, simple chiddush, he's going to be happy. He's going to just eat it up. So you find in the Gemaras sometimes the Amoraim didn't know something, and they learned it. And there's a Gemara Megillah, I think it's talking about that Sudas Purim is only by day, is the Ikar Sudas by day. One Amar didn't know that, and he found it out, and he chazed it 40 times, and it was in his pocket. So that's like a simple halacha. Like a lot of these Gemaras are very simple halachas that Amoraim, they chazed it 40 times, they made sure, and they were so happy, because they were always very thirsty for Torah. That is how one should be, how one should approach the Torah. That's what this is. The Reb Chaim Volozhiner in Ruach Chaim has a different mahalach I'll share with you in this Mishnah. He says like this. He says that a person should his house should be a beis vad chachamim. That is referring to, he should have a lot of svarim. Right? In a person's house, Rabbi Miller also is very intent svarim. Says even if you're not going to read it, your sons-in-law will learn them, your grandchildren will learn them. It's a way to beautify your house. People have nice Picasso, they have pictures, they have Van Goghs. We have svarim. Says Reb Chaim Volozhiner, a person should have, his house should be a beis vad chachamim, a place in gathering for chachamim. He should have a lot of svarim. Listen to this. It says that you should fight with the authors of these svarim. In other words, you can argue with them. You should learn a sefer. You're learning a pirush on the Gemara, on the Chumash, and Shulchan Aruch, whatever it might be. And if you don't understand something, you should ask counsel. You should argue, and you should feel free to argue with the previous generations of Rabbanim. That's what he says. Reb Chaim Volozhiner says this, yeah. And he says, "Ba'afar agleim." Why ba'afar agleim? Because with respect. It must be with respect. But I want to hear this from Rav Leichter. I think in the name of Rabbi Yisrael Slank, I'm not sure, but Rav Leichter said, there's no emunas chach. Emunas chacham means we trust that our Gedol Yisrael, they're right. Wherever they paskin is based on the Torah and they're right. When it comes to learning, there's no emunas chacham. if I don't understand Pshat in the Reb Chaim, if I don't understand Pshat in the Shach, so I have a kasha, I don't understand it. They once went to Rav Shach. Rav Shach was a very close talmid of the Brisker Rav. Rav Shach would travel to Yerushalayim to ask the Brisker Rav a kasha. So the Talmidim in Panovich once, Rav Shach once asked the kasha on a Shtigur Reb Chaim in Sefer, Chaim Salvation. So his Talmidim went to Yerushalayim to ask Reb Chaim's son, the Brisker Rav, this kasha. And the Brisker Rav said, I don't know the answer. All I can tell you is that when my father, I remember when he wrote this piece, the shtickle, he had that Gemara in Gittin open to that page. They're asking what Toys is in Gittin, and the Brisker Rav said, I don't have an answer, but for 3 days, my father was writing this Chiddush, and that Gemara to that Toys was open. So I can tell you one thing, for sure he had a teretz. It's not like he wasn't aware of that Toys as he was writing the shtickle. They come back to Rav Shach, and they say, Rav Shach, so we asked your kasha to Brisker Rav, this is what he said. So Rav Shach told them, Mezainin Talmidim Nisht Chasidim. We're students, we're not Chasidim. A Chasid, whatever the Rebbe says, that's it. There's no questioning. We are students. A student can ask a kasha on his Rebbe. If I don't understand what Reb Chaim is saying, so I have a kasha. It's a shver Reb Chaim, I'm going to say a different malach, a different shach. In halacha, we have emunah sacham. If the Rav paskins, if the God of Yisrael paskins a din, so even if you don't understand, that's what he paskins, that's the way it is. But in learning, there's no emunah sacham. So he's rather talking about Allah. He's talking about people who are roy lahayra, they're able to pass in shilas, and he says that you shouldn't be afraid if you don't understand from the previous generation what they said. You shouldn't be afraid to be chaylik on them. Now, obviously, a person has to speak to other rabbanim. One on his own can't be chaylik on a previous generation. But lemaisa, the dino one can according to Chaim Volozhin. They bring the bottom over here from Rav Yosef Zilda Misalant, a talmid of the Gra, who says that the Chaim Volozhin himself, he was a talmid of the Gra as well, and he heard from the Gra that the Chaim Volozhin should not, he shouldn't be afraid to be chaylik on anyone up until and the Gra gave him a shus to be chaylik up until the Rosh, not including the Rosh. So the Vilna Gaon gave Reb Chaim Volozhiner permission to be chaylik on the Shach, on the Taz, on the Magen Avram. It sounds like on the Mechaber. Reb Chaim Volozhiner be chaylik on everyone up until the Rosh, but not including the Rosh. Once you get to the Rosh, you can't be chaylik. They bring a Maisa that whenever Reb Chaim Volozhiner wrote a tshuva to be matir in Aguna, right, a woman whose husband was lost, but you can't find him, now she's stuck. Whenever he wrote a tshuva to be matir in Aguna, Reb Chaim Volozhiner's minhag was he would wait overnight. He'd finish writing the tshuva, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, he wouldn't send it out until the next morning. You'd think, let it have a linas laila, let it go overnight. So Pam Achad Nidmaloi, so he once wrote a tshuva, and that night, he had a dream that he should hold off another day with the tshuva. Okay, let's say he wrote it on Sunday, so he went to sleep Sunday night, the dream said hold off. Okay, Monday night, another dream, hold off another day. Tuesday night, another dream, hold off another day. So he realized there's something going on until he found out there's a rush against this tshuva. So then he was involved in tshuva to write another way to be matir the aguna. So that's how Chaim Volozhiner learns. Your house should be a base vad b'chachamim. I should have a lot of svarim. One who's roy loy ra shouldn't be afraid to be misabik, to fight, to argue with them, but ba'afar ragleim. With the dirt, meaning realizing that I am very low and they're very high. It's with respect. Sometimes you find by certain people, for some reason about Hirsch more than others, people say, Hirsch says this. That's how you talk. You call someone by the last name. And my parents always taught me, it's not respectful. Hey, a friend, you can call your friend, But Hirsch, it's not respectful. This is Hirsch's approach. This is Berlin's approach for the Netziv. You're going to say this is Feinstein. So you can tell by the way a person talks, the way he approaches. So you're being chaylik. Reb Chaim Volozhiner, let's say, is being chaylik on the Shach, on the Magen Avram, but you have to treat them with respect. They're obviously greater than us, but like Rav Shach said, Mezayin Talmidim Nish Chasidim. We don't just follow if you don't understand. We have to understand it, and that's the proper way to go. So that's Reb Chaim Volozhiner's Mahalach in the Mishnah and Mishnah Dalet. Mishnah Hey. Yosef ben Yochanan Ish Yerushalayim Omer. He says, "He beischa pasuach l'revacha." Your house should be open to revacha. You should have a lot ravchus. Says the Rabbeinu Yonah two things. Either it means we should always find revach in your house, in the sense you should have aniyah, you should have a lot of people who are needy in your house. Your house is open to feed whoever needs it. Right? So people are always in your house, a person's always doing hachnasas orachim. A second halach, he says, is a person should be living b'makom revacha. A person should be living in a place that positions him well for doing chesed. How many of us, when we're buying a house, think, okay, we have a lot of cheshbonis of what this and that and other. What's the best area to do chesed? I wish I would have learned this Mishnah before, right? I mean, one of the cheshbonis the person has to have, says Rabbeinu Yonah, when he buys a house, when he rents a house, is what area, what street, what side of the street, corner, middle, what's the best place for me to do chesed? Where can I optimize my hachnasas orachim? If someone's walking by, I can go out and say shalom to them. That should be a person's cheshbon when he's deciding where to live and where in the community to live, is where can I optimize my chesed? Yibeischa pasuach l'revacha, it should be open to a place where I can do chesed b'revach, like Avram Avinu. He put himself in the middle of the whole area with doors on all sides. That's the house should be a house of chesed.
Oh, but that's why you got a corner house?
That was maybe after the fact I can say that. But,
local realtor wasn't bad that well.
yeah, it could be my real estate broker. Was, that's the first one. Poor people should be the bnei beisacha. That doesn't just mean that you have poor people in your house. The bnei bayis. The bnei bayis, the people who are always in your house. The ben bayis is someone that you kind of adopt. A baruch is learning yeshiva and he stays in your house for a couple of years. That's a ben bayis, right? Anim should be bnei beisacha. They don't just come to collect the check. They don't just come for a meal and they leave. It should be your bnei bayis. So what does that mean? You have to have. Chaim Soloveitchik had that. Chaim Soloveitchik would always have in his house poor people, and there was no bedtime in this house for his kids. It was Perkei. But the brisker Rav once was very tired, and so he found a bench to go to sleep. I took a nap on a bench, and like a very hard wooden bench. And he woke up. He was like so refreshed. So it reminds him of my childhood. So he never had a bed. I mean, he had a bed in his room, but there's always someone sleeping in his bed. So he had to put two chairs together. That's where he grew up. Bishop grew up in such a house. It was hefkeris in this house. Reb Chaim was hefkeris. There's always people coming in, and people. Reb Chaim would often have to ask someone, "Could you please? You're sitting on my hat. Could you please stand up? I have to go." That's Reb Chaim would take his hat. The brisker was all refreshed. Reminded him of his childhood. They have hefkeris in his house. It was a very difficult time financially for Yidden, and a person would give birth. She couldn't support her child. They would leave their babies on Reb Chaim's doorstep, and he would take care of them. He would hire wet nurses for them. So once there's a wet nurse who felt that she didn't get paid enough. Or maybe she didn't get paid and she forgot, she got all angry. So Chaim gave her the money, I'm so sorry, it wasn't his fault, I'm so sorry. He gave her a little extra. He said, but do me a favor, wait a couple hours to nurse the baby because you're angry and that will affect the milk and that will go into the baby. Wait a few hours until you nurse the baby. So it was standard. People would leave their babies on Chaim's door so he would take care of them. It's that's Aniyim Bnei Beisacha. They said in his Levi, they said that his kids said that the biggest godless of our father, his mind, he was born a genius. Chaim was born a genius. That wasn't his biggest godless. His biggest godless was, this is what they said, otherwise I would never say this, what they said. He was born beteva and achzari. He wasn't like about chesed beteva. It wasn't about chesed, it wasn't his certain people are very nice people, right? That's beteva, they're very nice people in nature. Chaim was a very serious and wasn't interested in people, and he worked on himself until he became this tremendously selfless individual, and that was his godless. The Chedush Ben Chaim Rambam, he was born with an unbelievable mind, but him turning himself from a person who's more of focusing on himself into a Baal Chesed. We spoke out in the past that there was a big fire in Brisk, and all the houses burned down. So all the Gvirim were charged with building everyone's houses. Their houses got built first. There's still some poor people sleeping in the shul because they had no place to live. And Reb Chaim felt that they weren't building the houses fast enough. So the Rav moved into the shul to sleep with the poor people. And they begged him, it's a bizayin, to see the Rav in his pajamas brushing his teeth in the morning. It was not much a bizayin. He refused to leave the shul until the last person's house is built. So that's Yibeischa Aniyim Bnei Beisacha. Says the Rabbeinu Yonah, that means one of two things. If you're going to hire people to work in your house, make sure you hire poor people. You need someone to fix the plumber. an air conditioning person, you have a maid. If you can hire a Jew or from person or any Yid who's an ani, you should have the aniyim b'nei beisecha. I'm going to employ people who need the money. Aniyim b'nei beisecha. That is the first malach. The second malach is that poor people should be comfortable in your house. They should be your b'nei bayis, not just come and leave. They should be you should make a matz of an environment where people are comfortable to stay in one's house. Aniyim b'nei beisecha. That's what it is. It's interesting that both Yosef ben Ye'ezer, Yishu Tzreida, and Yosef ben Yochanan, Yishu Shalayim, they're both focusing on the house. They could have said, give tzedakah, be a nice person, surround yourself with aniyim and make sure they're comfortable around you. But the focus is the house. We say when a person gets married, you should be zoked to build a bias naman b'Yisrael. So the importance of the house, not just myself doing the right thing, but making sure my house is involved with that as well. My father-in-law, Zichron Livracha, was able to learn in his house. His kids remember growing up, father was learning at the dining room table. 8 kids, right? They're all running around, and he buttoned my shirt, and he was always sitting with the Sefer learning. He'd stop for a minute and help the kid out and go back to his learning. I can't do that. For me, I have to have more focus. But for him, it's unbelievable. All his kids grew up seeing their father pouring over a Sefer on the table. We have to bring the Torah, we have to bring the mitzvahs into the house. It's not just, I'm obligated, I have to make sure that my house, the house has to be the focal point of all these mitzvahs. We'll finish up the Mishnah. A person should not have excessive chatter with women. With his wife, they said this is the halakha is true. Of course, all the more so with someone else's wife. Mikan amru chacham, here the chacham say, as long as a person is being married, is having excessive chatter, excessive talking with a woman, he's causing evil, he's inflicting evil upon himself. He's not going to be learning Torah, he's going to be mevatel Torah. In the end, he'll be Yorish Gehenim. So it's pretty strong, right? So we think we understand our Teva. Chazal understood our Teva. So who has the better chance of being correct? I had a friend, we were learning in yeshiva, and he was going to University of Pennsylvania for university. So I said, you have to be careful. You're going there, and genders together is mixed. You have to make sure you have the right shmiras for yourself. No, for me, it's nothing. He said, I'm okay. I'm not. I can handle myself fine. He ended up marrying a girl from University of Pennsylvania. So people think they know themselves, but one has to be very careful. Says the Rabbeinu Yonah that al tabasichem isha why shem yigbar hayetzer v'yavel dei pshia. Lest the person's yetzer hara, I'm putting myself in a situation that my yetzer hara has a chance not to chap me. There is a politician around today who, when he was running for office, I think we spoke about this once, he said that he would not go to any event, any dinner that has alcohol unless his wife is with him. That's what he said. So all the Yidden thought to themselves, wow, you have this guy who he mamish chaps, it's like a halacha, right? He keeps it. The leftist media said that he's a manovel. He doesn't trust himself. This guy, if he goes to a dinner with his alcohol, so it's not there, he's going to end up doing something wrong. He's a manovel. So a friend of mine in Melbourne, Menachem Chanan, he said that that's the difference between a Yid and a Goy. He says the Goyim think that put yourself in the worst matzav, and we expect you to do the right thing, and if not, so you failed. If you apologize and get up and do the whole thing, but you can put yourself in the most tempting situation and expect yourself to be able to be misgaber, to withstand. And halacha we say no. Yetzer leiva adam ramin urim, says Rabbeinu Yonah. We have tremendous yetzer haras, and we can't put ourselves in such a situation. And we have to realize that Chazal know better than us. There's someone else who's sitting in jail for 99 years, and he was a psychologist for Beis Yaakov girls. And so there are allegations he's sitting in jail. So one thing he denies everything. One thing he agrees, that he had 2 or 3 locks on his door, and when he would counsel, he would lock the door. Right? So, because you think to yourself, tell the average person in the street that you can't be in the room with this person of the opposite gender, with the door locked. You can't. In the middle of the day, you can't. Crazy? If you keep the Torah, if this person would have kept Hilchos Yichud, they couldn't have made the allegations. Maybe he was right, maybe he didn't do anything. But one thing is clear, he did not keep Hilchos Yichud. He did not follow this Mishnah in Perkei Avos. He thought, no, I know better, I know my Torah better, I can do this, nothing will happen. So maybe he's innocent, but one thing he's guilty of is not keeping the gedarim, the fences the Chazal put up. So to us it sounds quite radical. Al par b'sichi ma'isha bi'ishtoi amr, even with one's wife, it shouldn't be excessive. Kavchan be'eshes chaveiroi, soifa yorish gehenna. He's going to go down, down, down. You tell the average person today, they think you're crazy. But we know, the Chazal know better than us. So it's something to take on board and make sure not to put ourselves in a situation that, chas v'shalom, a person will not be able to withstand the temptation. Shkaya.